In a palace of shining crystals where silence ruled for 27 long years, two royal twins had not spoken a single word to each other. Their empire stood frozen in pride, until one ordinary human cleaning lady and the innocent laughter of a baby shattered centuries of coldness. What began as a small accident soon became the spark that changed an entire kingdom. This is the story of how laughter healed a throne and united a divided empire. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where you are watching from. Now let's jump into the story. The heart of the Vuvian Empire stood the Palace of Nexus Prime, a giant crown of crystal and light resting above a futuristic city. Its towers reached into the sky like frozen beams of starlight. Its bridges hung in the air as if gravity had forgotten them. For 17 star systems, this palace was not only a home, it was a symbol of power, order, and unshakable control. This is where our inspiring story of royal twins and a human cleaning lady begins. Inside those shining walls lived Princess Lyra and Prince Lumen, the royal twins of the eternal line. Their skin was a deep blue, traced with natural silver markings that looked like constellations across their faces and hands. Both were gifted with telepathic abilities and long life. Both were born on the same day at the same hour. Yet for 27 years, they had not spoken even a single word to each other. Their silence was as wide as the space between galaxies. Everyone in the palace knew the story, but no one knew the reason. Some whispered that the twins had fought over power. Others said it was about an ancient law of succession. Servants lowered their voices whenever the subject came up. Guards avoided the topic completely. What was clear was simple. Something had broken between Lyra and Lumen at a grand celebration long ago, and neither of them had ever tried to fix it. The Eternal Sovereign, their mother and ruler of the Empire, had tried for years to bring them together. She had ordered meetings. She had commanded shared ceremonies. She had arranged formal talks. Each attempt ended in more distance and more silence. Finally, even she had stepped back. She focused on governing the empire while her children lived in separate wings of the same palace, like two distant planets sharing the same star, but never orbiting close. The East Wing belonged to Princess Lyra. She spent her days among ancient books, old laws, and floating crystals filled with history. She trained her telekinetic powers in quiet rooms and walked alone through echoing halls. The West Wing belonged to Prince Lumen. He studied technology, future weapons, and complex diplomacy. His chambers glowed with screens and devices, always full of data and strategy. Between them lay the central chambers, once the heart of family life, now an empty no-man's land of pure silence. Palace staff followed strict schedules designed with military detail. Halls were cleared before a royal moved. Doors were locked or opened at exact times. Teleportation pads were reserved so that Lyra and Lumen would never appear in the same place. Over time, this system became normal. The central chambers turned into a ghost zone, beautiful and bright but cold and unused. It was a perfect picture of a broken family in a flawless building. Then the Interstellar Employment Initiative arrived, a project made to show the galaxy that the Vuvian Empire welcomed other species. For the first time, humans and other aliens were offered jobs inside the palace. Among these new workers was Maya Sullivan, a 42-year-old cleaning specialist from Earth. Her life had been ordinary and real. She had raised children, survived a painful divorce, and watched her family grow up and move on. With her children living their own lives, she wanted a fresh start and a new adventure. Maya did not look like anyone else in the palace. She stood average height, with warm brown skin and curly black hair touched with gray. Her eyes were a soft hazel that always seemed curious. She did not have royal blood, telepathic powers, or advanced technology. What she did have was steady courage, quiet kindness, and the ability to keep going no matter what life threw at her. This emotional story begins to shift when she walks into the silent center of the royal world. When the palace assigned Maya to the central chambers, most staff barely noticed. To them, it was just another name on a schedule. But in truth, this choice was the first small push that would move the entire empire. Maya's task was simple. Keep the unused crystal halls clean. Polish the massive tables. Wipe the glassy floors. Dust the empty throne seats where no one sat anymore. Day after day, she worked alone in the quiet space that lay between the two royal wings. One morning, The palace was calm as usual. The city outside glowed with moving lights and sky traffic. Inside, the central meeting hall echoed with the soft sound of Maya's cleaning tools. She hummed under her breath as she wiped a huge crystal table that could seat dozens of leaders. After months on Nexus Prime, she had still never seen the famous royal twins. To her, they were legends living on the other side of the glass. Her world was buckets, cloths, and the gentle rhythm of daily work. Her wrist device buzzed with a new message from Earth. Curious and excited, Maya paused her work and tapped the display. A hologram opened in front of her, showing fresh pictures from her daughter. Her granddaughter, born only 2 weeks earlier, smiled and wriggled in the images. Tiny fingers curled, tiny eyes shone. Maya's tired face softened and warmed at once. She zoomed in on one photo and whispered to herself, "What a little troublemaker. Just like your mother." She laughed quietly, filled with simple joy. Far from home, in the greatest palace of the Vuvian Empire, a human grandmother stood alone, smiling at a baby she had never held. It was a small human moment inside a monumental alien building. It felt private and safe. What Maya did not see was the faint shimmer in the air at the far end of the hall. A teleportation pad activated with a soft glow. Lines of light twisted in the air and formed into the shape of Princess Lyra. The princess appeared in full royal robes of deep blue that matched the Empire's colors. She expected an empty room. Instead, her eyes landed on a human cleaning lady standing by the crystal table, holding a glowing device and smiling at thin air. Maya gasped and almost dropped her supplies when she recognized the royal figure from the training videos. She bowed quickly, heart racing. Her words tumbled out in a rush. "Your Highness, I am so sorry. I thought this chamber was empty. I was scheduled to clean until the 10th hour. I will leave at once." Princess Lyra lifted one slender hand. Her voice was calm and musical but distant. "There is no need. I arrived earlier than planned. Continue your duties. I will return later." She turned toward the teleportation pad, clearly ready to vanish as suddenly as she had arrived. Before she could leave, a second shimmer appeared on the opposite side of the chamber. Another teleportation pad activated. Lines of light twisted again. Prince Lumen materialized, tall, formal, and covered in traditional silver ornaments of Vuvian royalty. He took one step forward, then froze. His eyes met those of his twin sister across the hall. For the first time in 27 years, the royal twins stood face to face in the same room. Between them, holding a cleaning cloth and a buzzing device, stood a human woman who had just wanted to finish her work. The air tightened as if the palace itself was holding its breath. The silent palace and the twins' cosmic Cold War were about to change. And it would begin with the smallest sound in the most unlikely hands. The air in the grand crystal chamber felt frozen in time. Princess Lyra and Prince Lumen stared at each other, their identical silver-marked faces stiff with shock. 27 years of silence had ended, not with words, but with the unexpected crossing of teleportation schedules. The room shimmered with tension, every breath heavy as the weight of an empire. Between them stood Maya Sullivan, the human cleaning lady from Earth, holding her cleaning cloth like a shield. She had no idea what to do or where to look. Lyra spoke first, her tone sharp but controlled. "Prince Lumen, an unexpected encounter." Lumen inclined his head slightly, his voice cold and precise. "Indeed, Princess Lyra. A scheduling error, perhaps." The air between them pulsed with old resentment. Neither moved, neither blinked. Maya stood frozen, afraid to breathe too loudly in case it shattered the fragile silence. Then fate, with its quiet humor, decided to interfere. Maya's wrist device buzzed again. The cheerful sound echoed across the vast chamber. She jumped, startled, and the device slipped from her hands. It clattered against the shining floor. The holographic display flared to life, projecting an image of her baby granddaughter into the empty space. The child's round face filled the air with light. Tiny fingers reached forward. Then came the sound that changed everything. A burst of pure, unfiltered laughter. Bright, human, and full of life. The baby giggled, a bubbling sound so unexpected that it seemed to vibrate through the crystal walls themselves. In a room built for royal decrees and political meetings, that laugh sounded like music from another world. Maya scrambled to silence the device, stammering apologies. "Your Highnesses, I am so sorry. Please forgive the interruption. I didn't mean." But before she could finish, the device played another small video. The baby stuck out her tongue and blew a loud raspberry at the camera. The sound echoed again. Maya froze, waiting for punishment. But the silence that followed was different now. Lighter. Warmer. Princess Lyra's lips curved upward, the first hint of a smile anyone had seen in decades. Her brother blinked in disbelief, his usual composure faltering. His voice, when it came, was softer. "Is that an offspring?" Maya hesitated, still kneeling on the floor. "Yes, Your Highness. My granddaughter. She was born 2 weeks ago." Prince Lumen tilted his head slightly, curious. "Vuvians do not produce such sounds. Our infants are quiet from birth." Maya gave a small, nervous laugh. "Human babies are the opposite. They cry, they shout, and they laugh at everything, sometimes all at once. This one already has a personality." Princess Lyra stepped closer, curiosity shining in her pale silver eyes. "May I see?" Maya blinked in surprise, then carefully held out the device. "Of course, Your Highness." The princess accepted it, her long fingers tracing the glowing images. She studied them silently, her face softening as she watched the tiny baby wiggle and smile. The crystal light reflected in her eyes like distant stars. "Human development occurs at a remarkable pace," she murmured. "Fascinating." Maya dared to glance at Prince Lumen. He stood motionless, his expression torn between pride and stubbornness. His eyes betrayed interest, though his body refused to move. Sensing the invisible wall between the siblings, Maya made a decision. She turned to him and said gently, "Would you like to see too, Your Highness? There's a video of her first bath. She splashed water everywhere. For a moment no one spoke. Then Lyra did something unthinkable. She walked toward her brother. For the first time in 27 years, she crossed the invisible line that had divided them. She extended the device toward him. It was a gesture simple in form but immense in meaning. Lumen hesitated, then stepped forward. His hand brushed hers as he took the device. It was the first contact between them in nearly 3 decades. He pressed the screen. The hologram shifted to a moving image. The baby laughed again, kicking water, sending tiny splashes everywhere. A woman's voice off-screen laughed and scolded. The baby answered with another delighted squeal. Lumen's face changed, a twitch at the corner of his mouth. A short breath that might have been a laugh. Lyra covered her mouth, her eyes bright. Then it happened. A soft chuckle escaped the prince. It was followed by a clear laugh from the princess. And before either could stop themselves, both were laughing freely, the sound echoing through the crystal chamber. Their laughter filled the room that had known only silence for 27 years. Maya stood speechless. In front of her, the royal heirs of the most powerful empire in 17 star systems were giggling over a human baby video. The sight was both absurd and beautiful. As the laughter faded, a strange calm settled in the room. It felt as if the palace itself sighed in relief. Lumen handed the device back to Maya with formal precision. "Thank you for sharing your familial documentation," he said, trying to sound official. It was informative. Princess Lyra nodded, her voice soft. "Indeed, human infants possess unusual expressiveness." Maya smiled nervously, her heart still racing. "They certainly do, Your Highnesses. Sometimes it's the small things that bring the most joy." Silence followed again, but it was no longer heavy. This silence was comfortable, almost thoughtful. For the first time in decades, the royal twins stood side by side without hostility. They did not retreat. They did not turn away. Instead, they remained there, 2 ancient siblings remembering what it meant to be connected. Lyra broke the quiet first. "I believe we both arrived early to prepare for the Galactic Council reception," she said carefully. Lumen nodded. "The Andromedan delegates requested special arrangements. Perhaps we should coordinate them together," Lyra suggested. Her tone held no coldness this time. Lumen hesitated, then agreed. That would be efficient. Maya sensed she was no longer supposed to leave unnoticed. Instead, she stayed as the twins began to discuss their duties. Their words were formal, but the edge between them had dulled. When she finally gathered her things and bowed to depart, both royals spoke at once. "Wait." Maya froze. "Yes, Your Highnesses. Your presence is not unwelcome," Lyra said, her voice composed but warm. "Indeed," Lumen added. "Your perspective may prove useful." Maya nodded, her heart swelling with disbelief. "Of course, Your Highnesses. I would be honored." And so, for the first time in 27 years, the royal twins of the Vuvian Empire stood together in the same room, speaking not through bitterness, but through purpose. Between them stood a human cleaning lady who had done what no diplomat, no law, and no command could ever do. She had cracked the frozen wall between them with the laughter of a baby. The palace that had felt cold and lifeless now seemed brighter. Even the air felt lighter, as though it carried hope. For in that single moment of shared laughter, the first fracture appeared in the Empire's icy silence. And from that tiny crack, the warmth of something far greater began to shine through. The morning after the strange encounter in the central chamber, whispers spread through the Vuvian palace like quiet lightning. The royal twins had been seen together for the first time in 27 years. No one knew what had happened, only that a human cleaning lady had somehow been in the room. Palace staff spoke of it in hushed tones. The eternal sovereign's children, long divided by silence, had exchanged words and even laughter. It sounded impossible, yet the story was true. Maya Sullivan went about her work with her usual calm, but inside she was shaken. She had not planned to interfere in royal matters. She had only dropped her device and shared an innocent laugh. But that single moment had shifted something deep within the heart of the Empire. She tried to convince herself that it had been a coincidence, but the look on the twins' faces stayed with her. The ice between them had cracked, if only slightly. Over the next few days, small changes began to appear. Cleaning schedules were suddenly altered, so that Maya's shifts overlapped with royal meetings. The central chambers, once silent and empty, became busier. First, Princess Lyra began to hold her studies there, surrounded by floating texts. Then Prince Lumen arrived under the excuse of testing new diplomatic displays. Somehow their schedules now overlapped regularly. The palace pretended not to notice. Maya found herself often present when both royals were in the same room. She moved quietly, polishing the crystal surfaces and pretending not to hear their careful, polite exchanges. It was obvious they were still uncomfortable, but they no longer avoided each other. The first few times they spoke, their voices sounded formal and forced, but each conversation lasted a little longer than the one before. One day, as Maya wiped down the walls of the Grand Gallery, Prince Lumen approached her. "Human Maya," he said, his tone serious yet curious. "I have a question about your species." She straightened quickly, surprised to be addressed directly. "Yes, Your Highness. What would you like to know?" Lumen folded his hands behind his back. "I am curious about the relationship between human twins. Is it common for them to remain close throughout their lives?" Before Maya could answer, another voice joined from behind. "That depends," said Princess Lyra as she entered the gallery. "Some grow apart, some remain inseparable." She looked at Maya, clearly expecting her to elaborate. Maya took a breath. "Well, Your Highnesses, twins often have a special bond. They can be very close. Sometimes they argue fiercely, but they usually make peace again. It's hard for them to stay angry forever." The twins exchanged a quick glance that spoke volumes. Lumen's expression was thoughtful, while Lyra's eyes softened, though she kept her posture regal. "Fascinating," the prince said. "And what encourages them to reconcile after conflict?" Maya paused her cleaning. "Usually someone has to take the first step," she said simply. "Pride keeps people apart. But the moment one person reaches out, the wall starts to fall." She smiled gently. "In human life, time feels short. Holding on to anger too long only hurts both sides." The twins fell silent. It was clear her words had reached them. For a long moment they stood in quiet thought, each processing the idea. Then Lyra nodded slowly. "Perhaps your perspective has value beyond cultural curiosity." Maya bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Highness. I only speak from experience." From that day forward, Maya was no longer just the cleaner. She became the palace's informal human consultant. The twins began inviting her to the royal archives for what they called cultural discussions. These meetings started formally, but over time they became natural conversations. The topics ranged from humor and family to forgiveness and history. During one session, the twins showed Maya an ancient Vuvian text describing a failed diplomatic dinner with humans 2 centuries earlier. They asked her why the human guests had suddenly laughed during a serious speech. Maya read the passage, then smiled. "It's because the Vuvian phrase for atmospheric release translates into a human phrase about passing gas." That would have sounded funny to them. Both royals stared blankly. Then Prince Lumen asked with genuine curiosity. Humans laugh at bodily functions. Sometimes Maya answered, especially when it breaks formal tension. It's a reminder that everyone is human, even in serious moments. Princess Lyra tilted her head, thoughtful. Humor is a bridge between status and emotion. We lack such customs. That conversation became one of many, where laughter returned to the central chambers. Sometimes the twins shared cautious smiles, and other times they nearly laughed aloud before regaining composure. Each moment made their connection a little stronger. Weeks passed and the change became visible. The twins began arriving to meetings together, no longer needing Maya as an excuse. They now discussed royal duties face to face, but they continued to invite her to their sessions, saying her insight was helpful. Then came the unexpected honor. Maya received a formal invitation to attend the grand royal reception, welcoming the eternal sovereign home from her diplomatic journey. She read the message 3 times to be sure it was real. No human staff had ever been invited to such an event. On the evening of the reception, the vast hall glowed with light. Beings from across the 17 star system stood waiting. When the royal twins entered side by side, the entire room fell silent. Walking between them was Maya Sullivan, no longer a simple cleaner but an honored guest. From her throne, the eternal sovereign watched them approach. Her eyes, ancient and wise, studied her children. For decades they had entered her presence separately. Now they stood united, and a human stood between them like a living bridge. The sovereign addressed Maya directly. "Human of Earth, my children tell me you have influenced them." Maya bowed deeply. "Your eternal majesty, I only shared stories from my life. Sometimes even small stories can help people see differently." The sovereign's voice softened. "My children laughed together after 27 years. Do you know what power you have awakened?" Maya smiled modestly. "No power, your majesty. Only perspective. Sometimes a small laugh opens a great door." The sovereign turned to her twins. She asked if this new bond was true. They both nodded. "We have remembered that some connections are greater than disagreement," Lyra said, "and laughter can open paths that reason alone cannot," Lumen added. The hall filled with quiet awe. After years of division, the royal heirs of the Vuvian Empire stood united once again. The eternal sovereign smiled, a rare and radiant expression. "Then let this moment be remembered," she declared. "The Empire owes its healing to the smallest act of humanity." Maya felt her throat tighten. She had never imagined her ordinary life could touch something so vast. As the reception continued, she stood quietly by as the royal twins greeted guests together. Every gesture, every shared glance showed a new warmth between them. The Empire had not seen such harmony in generations. That night, when the lights dimmed and the hall emptied, Maya looked around the glowing palace and felt a deep truth settle in her heart. Reconciliation did not begin with power or law. It began with kindness, humility, and the courage to reach out first. The human cleaning lady had become a bridge between 2 royal hearts, proving that even across galaxies, understanding and laughter could heal what time and pride had broken. The palace, once silent and cold, now echoed with something new. The sound of voices, not in argument but in harmony. The Empire's heart had begun to beat again. The Vuvian palace stood bathed in golden light as the twin suns of Nexus Prime rose above its crystal towers. The Empire had changed in ways no one could have imagined. For the first time in centuries, the royal twins ruled together in peace. Laughter now echoed where silence once lived. The once cold halls were filled with life, conversation, and music from distant worlds. It was a new beginning for an ancient dynasty. And at the center of it all, though she never sought attention, stood Maya Sullivan, the human cleaning lady who had helped repair a broken royal bond. Weeks after the grand reception, Maya prepared to return to Earth. She had been granted a rare honor by the eternal sovereign herself. A royal ship would take her across the stars to visit her family. The journey was a gift of gratitude for the unity she had inspired. As she packed her small bag, her reflection shimmered in the polished mirror. She looked the same, yet she felt transformed. She had not only cleaned the floors of a palace, but had wiped away the dust from hearts buried under pride. In the hangar bay, Princess Lyra and Prince Lumen awaited her. They stood side by side, no longer divided by invisible walls. Their expressions were calm, but their eyes held warmth. Maya bowed, but Lyra gently lifted her chin. "No more bowing," she said softly. "You are our honored friend." Lumen nodded in agreement. "The Empire has many advisors, but none have taught us as much as you." Maya smiled, humbled. "I only reminded you of what was already there, your highnesses. Family is a bond that never truly breaks. It only forgets how to speak." As she boarded the ship, Lyra placed a small crystal pendant in her hand. Within it shimmered faint silver light. "It is made from the same crystal as the palace core," Lyra explained. "It will remind you that your kindness lit our path." Lumen added quietly, "And it will connect our worlds forever." The engines hummed to life, and the ship rose above the shining towers. Through the viewing window, Maya saw the palace grow smaller, the city fading into a sea of light. She felt both sadness and peace. She was going home, but part of her would always remain among the stars. When she landed on Earth, her family waited at the terminal. Her daughter ran to her, tears in her eyes, and little Sophia, the baby who had unknowingly healed an empire, reached out her tiny hands. Maya lifted her granddaughter, laughing as the child giggled and touched the glowing pendant. To everyone's surprise, the crystal shimmered brighter at the sound. It pulsed softly as if alive. Months passed, and Maya's visit stretched longer than planned. She spent her days surrounded by family, sharing stories of her time in the palace. She spoke of the royal twins, their transformation, and how laughter had mended what power could not. Her stories spread through human networks, inspiring millions. She never exaggerated. She only told the truth, that kindness could cross galaxies, and that even the smallest act could shift the course of history. Back on Nexus Prime, the royal twins continued to grow closer. Their partnership became legendary. Lyra focused on wisdom and culture, while Lumen guided diplomacy and defense. Together, they ruled not as rivals but as reflections of one another. Under their shared leadership, the Vuvian Empire entered an age of balance. They called it the era of twin harmony. Their first royal decree was symbolic yet powerful. The central chambers, once the empty space that separated them, were renamed the Hall of Reunion. It became a place where disputes between star systems were settled through dialogue and understanding. The room that had once held silence now hosted voices from across the galaxy. In time, the royal twins introduced a new tradition. Every year, on the day they first spoke again, they gathered with leaders, citizens, and visitors from other worlds to celebrate Laughter Day. It was a day to honor joy, unity, and the simple truth that peace often begins with a smile. During the first celebration, the twins displayed a recording of the human baby's laughter that had brought them together. The sound played through the vast hall, and thousands of people from different worlds laughed with them. It was a sound that echoed across the empire. As the years passed, Maya's name became known throughout the Vuvian systems. Stories of the human cleaner who healed an empire were told in schools, museums, and royal speeches. But Maya herself never sought fame. She returned to her quiet life on Earth, working in her local community, sharing time with her granddaughter, and keeping in touch with the palace through rare interstellar messages. One day, a royal vessel appeared again in the skies above Earth. It was a small diplomatic craft bearing the twin insignia. The message it carried was brief but heartfelt. The royal twins invited Maya and her family to attend the 10th anniversary of Laughter Day. When Maya arrived once more at Nexus Prime, the palace no longer felt foreign. She was welcomed as family. As she entered the grand hall of reunion, the sound of laughter filled the air again. Lyra and Lumen stood on the dais smiling as they greeted her. Maya took her place beside them as the ceremony began. The twins addressed the crowd, speaking of how unity had replaced division, and how laughter had become the Empire's greatest strength. Then Lumen turned toward Maya. He said, "Today we honor the one who reminded us that love and laughter are the truest forms of power." The hall erupted in applause. Maya bowed her head, tears glistening in her eyes. For her, this was not just an honor. It was proof that one small act of humanity could ripple through the stars and change the course of destiny. As the ceremony ended, Maya stood by a balcony overlooking the glowing city. Beside her, the twins gazed out as well. Lyra spoke softly. "Our world is brighter now. You helped us remember what light truly means." Maya smiled. "I only held up a mirror, Your Highness. The light was always yours." The suns dipped low, casting golden rays through the crystal walls. Laughter drifted from the crowd below, mingling with music and voices. For the first time in generations, the Vuvian palace no longer felt distant or cold. It was alive. The story of the royal twins, a human cleaner and a baby's laughter, became legend across the stars. And as the empire moved forward into a new age of peace, one truth remained clear. Power could shape worlds, but only laughter could heal them. In the heart of Nexus Prime, the sound of joy had become the Empire's greatest legacy.